What do you have to do to get into heaven? Spoiler alert, according to Jesus, it's not a simple belief in something you say at an altar. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. 4 spiritual laws. That's what I was taught in Christian circles as a kid. Basically, it was 1, that God has a plan for your life. 2, that you are a sinner, you are separated from God, and there's nothing you can do. 3, that Jesus is the only thing that you can receive that will get you into heaven. And 4, you have to believe that and then pray this prayer, saying all of those 4 things, and then you get into heaven. And of course, there is scripture related to each one of those. You can Google 4 spiritual laws and find all the stuff out about that. The problem is, Jesus never said that. In fact, Jesus doesn't really talk about heaven in the way that evangelicals talk about it today at all, as in this thing that is a ultimate goal of the Christian life, and it's focused on something that happens after you die. Like, that's not really what he says at all. He keeps using this idea of the kingdom of heaven. And we hear kingdom and we think like a location, but he doesn't talk about it as a location or a destination. He says things like the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. It's the smallest seed, but it produces a large tree where birds can seek shelter. It's always metaphor, but it's not metaphor about eternal destination. It's a metaphor about the way that the teachings of God and the presence of God and like what God is doing through people can affect the world right now. Like the way it can bring more love and justice and peace. That's how Jesus talks about heaven. So the evangelicals treat heaven as like a membership organization when Jesus actually talks about it way more like a movement or a protest. Like you join a protest by going and taking action. And that's what the kingdom of heaven is like. It's when people go and take action. And so you actually don't ever see Jesus give an altar call, tell everybody that they're sinful, and ask them to pray this sinner's prayer. That never happens. What Jesus says is way more complicated and way more simple. What Jesus says over and over again is really simple. He says, follow me. And when the question comes, okay, what does it mean to follow Jesus? It means do the things he did, say the things he said, live your life according to this standard, right? And so Jesus did things like when a woman was having her bodily autonomy challenged and she was going to be punished physically by people hitting her with stones, Jesus stood in between the stones and the woman. And there was another woman that was being completely ostracized by her community, and they assumed that she had done some horrible sin that had separated her, and she was having this physical ailment that was a punishment because of something she did, and nobody was around her, nobody would talk to her. Jesus addressed the physical, healed it, and he addressed the communal and said, no, she was righteous, more righteous than anyone else. When it came to religious people, especially the people who were excluding people, who were finding new ways to tell people that they were horrible and sinful and separated from God, if that sounds familiar, he told those people to stop. But he did it in like the strongest way possible. One of the things that he said to them was, you're like tombs. You're pretty on the outside, but you're just full of dead men's bones. And look, there's definitely some sort of like eternal afterlife, something positive that the Bible is talking about and thinking about. But when you look to Jesus, he doesn't really talk about that almost at all. And he definitely doesn't talk about it as some sort of primary part of Christianity, that's the ultimate goal. When you ask Jesus about the kingdom of heaven, he starts talking about fighting for justice, loving people, including more people, right? He gives these examples of like standing up for the poor and the powerless, putting yourself in harm's way for those people, and fighting against the religious bigots. So we need to stop boiling all of the teachings of Jesus and all of Christianity down into this simple transaction that people can have an emotional experience and say a prayer and feel like they have somehow fulfilled the mission of Christianity and they are going to their eternal home, ultimately, generally opting them out of doing the really hard things that are the things that Jesus said when he talked about the kingdom of heaven.